You are listening to the FORSCOM Frontline, bringing you to our soldiers on the front lines of readiness.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the FORSCOM Frontline. I'm Jeannie, and I'm your host. Today, I am joined by Second Lieutenant Alma Cooper, who was recently crowned Miss USA. Welcome, Second Lieutenant Cooper, and thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. I'm so excited.
Of course, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So before we dive into your Miss USA title, I want to talk about your other title, U.S. Army Soldier. So tell me a little bit about you, about your background, and your journey into becoming a soldier.
Yes. So my entire journey to becoming a soldier started by my mother signing me up for West Point's summer leader experience. And at the time, I was going into my senior year of high school, and I had no idea what West Point was. And so my mom sent me this letter. She showed me this letter, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And I read it in front of my mom and dad. And my dad had served for 24 years. He graduated from officer candidate school and was an armor officer for 24 years. And so I got to watch his entire career. And I thought, Dad, this is cool, but I don't know if I'd ever do that. And I remember reading the letter and saying, okay, I'll go to the summer camp. And she was like, great, because I already paid the fee.
Oh my gosh. So you're committed at this point. Like, you have no choice.
Yes.
You're going.
Yes. So a couple weeks later, we pack up our stuff, and we all drove down. We drove up to West Point from Michigan. And I remember on the first day, I said goodbye to my parents, and then you kind of run off with all the other students who are in your cohort for that summer camp. And you go through the whole day, and you go through all these different stations, and they try and really mimic reception day when you're a West Point cadet, your first day at West Point. And I remember I got on my phone when I got back to my room, and I FaceTimed my parents, and the Wi-Fi was really bad, and I could still see them huddled around the phone, really glitchy though. And they said, well, what do you think? And I said, I love it. And from that moment on, I knew that I was going to go to West Point. And I just felt like there was this synergy in the air, and the environment was such that everyone wanted to be a better version of themselves for a cause that was bigger than who they are as an individual. And I thought, there's nowhere else in the country, in the world, where you can find such a unique environment with both academic rigor and also character development. And I thought that the young woman that I walk out of West Point as is going to be better for all of the challenges and adversities and things that I go through at the academy. And that ultimately really propelled me into that 4-year commitment. And then graduating, I was lucky enough to earn the Knights-Hennessey Scholarship, which is a full ride to Stanford University. So currently I'm earning my master's in data science at Stanford through that program. And just overall really grateful to, again, continue my leadership development in that program, but also earn a degree through that program.
Absolutely. And so
Yes.
I was going to ask you about the Knights-Hennessey Scholar, so I'm glad you covered that. And when you graduated, your MOS is actually military intelligence, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. And when you were assigned, I forget what they call it, the unit day where you get your unit assignment.
Yes,
you were
branch.
actually assigned to the 101st Airborne Division.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how does that work with the Knights-Hennessey Scholarship? Like when you finish your master's degree, are you going to go to the 101st after that?
Yes. So basically what happens is at that time, I was about 2 weeks out from finding out if I won the scholarship or not. I had finished my interview. So I was my fate was up in the air. So everyone has to pick a post on branch night, but whether or not you go is dependent on if you were to win a scholarship. And in my case, my program's 2 years. Because of that slot goes away. So I am currently not slotted to go to the 101st upon finishing my master's degree. I would then kind of repick basically my post after graduating.
Okay. Is there any installations, or should I say units, that you would love to go to?
I mean, I feel like I often have this conversation with my mentor, and we talk a lot about, I remember when I was basically only a couple months into my degree program, and I was like, "Ma'am, I really want to start thinking about where I'm going to go and things like that." And she's like, "Alma, just give it a second, just enjoy the moment, and then we'll have this conversation." So I always keep it on my radar and kind of just think about. At West Point, I was a systems engineering track. And so everyone has to pick an engineering track, and a part of the systems department is this class called decision making, or like how to build like a decision making model. So she always talks me through like basically a crash course through that class. Like, okay, this is what you want to prioritize. How do you build your decision making model? Like, what are your values here? Well, who are the stakeholders? And so I feel like at some point I will make that model.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's on the horizon, but kind of
Yes.
in the future, not kind of,
Yes.
you're trying to live in the present.
Correct.
Which I don't blame
But also
you.
plan ahead.
Exactly. I don't blame you. You have a lot going on in your life right now. So, I guess one of my biggest questions, have you always been a pageant girl? Did you do pageants growing up, or was this something new?
Yeah, well, I competed when I was like 8. I competed in a small pageant. I got a letter in the mail, and my mom, she competed in pageants when she was growing up. And, pageants are a very expensive hobby. And my mom, when she was younger, came from
Yes, they
very
are.
humble beginnings. And so what inspired me the most about my mom and her story in competing in pageants is that she taught dance lessons. She was a self-taught dancer, and she worked with this dance clinic in this dance studio where she taught dance lessons, and they funded her pageant fees. And so that was her way into pageantry. And for me, my parents were fortunate enough to, support me on this journey. So when I was 8 years old, I get this letter, and I was like, I want to do it. And they're like, all right, we'll support you. So I went to Limited 2, got, an outfit with my mom, and then we picked a dress at just this random dress boutique in our town. And I went and competed, and I won. And my mom was my coach. I saw so many young girls who, had coaches there and had a whole team there. And it was just me and my mom. And I really enjoyed it because, one, I made a ton of friends. And two, I was like, one day I hope to compete at Miss USA. I mean, how cool to be a part of this legacy of women who represent, really every industry and every sector of study, whether they are entrepreneurs or lawyers, or for me, an Army soldier, and just showing up as their most authentic selves and hoping to empower the next generation of leaders, next generation of women. And I watched, Miss USA growing up. It was kind of like the Super Bowl in our house.
Yep.
And I remember, for me, just thinking, wow, one day I really hope to be up there. So I competed in Miss Michigan Teen USA when I was 14, and I was first runner-up. My gown was actually from Facebook Marketplace, and my mom bedazzled it. And so, every time I competed, it just felt like it was my mom and I. We were just going through it together, and we're kind of just after a very similar dream. My mom never made it herself to the Miss America or the Miss USA stage, but she wanted to support me in my journey. So, when it was January of this year, and I knew that the Miss Michigan USA pageant was coming up in April, and I said, you know what, now's the time. And competing at Miss USA has been on my vision board, since I was a cadet at West Point. It was something I've always wanted to do. So it was really neat to fully experience that.
That is amazing. And you kind of have a similar story to me. I started pageants when I was 8. I competed in Miss North Carolina Teen USA, and I was also Miss Lee County and competed in Miss North Carolina America really, really long time ago. So we have that in common. And then my daughter, who is 18, and she does pageants as well. She actually has a couple of them coming up, and it's funny. And I'm going to ask you this question kind of later, because I have some other questions, but my daughter is planning on joining the Navy. So she's in her MEPS process right now. So we have a very similar story. And so my little pageant heart is like bursting right now. So I'm so excited. So in doing pageants, and I was going to ask you about Miss Michigan, which you already covered. Has your command, like, I know you were at West Point when you competed, were they very supportive about competing in Miss Michigan? And then when you won, how were they about you competing in Miss USA?
So I'm actually in the student detachment, and Fort Jackson, and that's who I'm assigned to as a grad student at Stanford. And so I actually was able to talk to the commander there, and he congratulated me and just really relayed all of his support and just said, we're here to support you and to help you along this process because, this is new to everyone. It's not every day that, someone says, oh, I'm Miss USA and I'm also an Army soldier. So, in forging a new path, sometimes you're building the plane as you're flying it. And I think that I've been really fortunate to have so much support, both from mentors and professors that I had at West Point, from old grads from West Point. I know the West Point women have really rallied behind me and given me so much support, which I'm really grateful for. And also just, some of the individuals I've already built relationships with in, the big Army after graduating from West Point. I'm really grateful for the support that they've shown and, just trying to help me along the process as I go along.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. I'm so glad you have the support. Now, has there been any negative responses to you winning Miss USA and being in the Army?
I think that that's a part of life. When you do something difficult, when you do something that hasn't been done before, it's been a really long time since something like this has been done before. You're just bound to, take on opinions that may not be positive. But I think that for me, when I look back at myself when I was 8 years old, I think, I'm hoping to be the young woman that I wish I saw. And so I hope that, in my forging this path that, maybe there are future individuals who may not maybe want to become the next Miss USA, but are looking to pursue a passion or a personal project that means a lot to them and know and feel, supported or feel encouraged to pursue that just by seeing my story and going along on this journey.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that really kind of stood out to me is the fact that you do pageants and you're a soldier, and they often seem like they're different ends of the spectrum in life, but I'm sure there are parts that are very similar in competing in a pageant and basically competing in the Army. I mean, you're competing against yourself. You're constantly trying to be better and be better for your soldiers and things like that. How do you balance the two of being Miss USA and just in doing pageants in general and being a soldier?
I think I rely heavily on my character and a lot of the discipline that I developed growing up in a military household from my father, and then also going to West Point. I think that in times where things are difficult or I have a lot on my plate, I just remind myself of, my character is the bedrock of my leadership, of every endeavor that I take on, every passion project I take on. I rely heavily on my character because to me, that's what speaks the loudest about who I am as an individual. That's my work ethic. That's who I am when no one's watching. All of those things go into making Alma. And so taking that with me onto the Miss USA stage, I knew that every time I stepped on stage, I didn't want to, become someone else. I was going to rely on my character. And the same goes when I put this uniform on. And I know that being Miss USA, it's an extension of my service in uniform because my heart and my integrity are still the same. My character is still the same. I'm just showing up with a different hat on that day. But I really go back to the character aspect because to me, and balancing my time and maintaining my discipline, I still wake up at 6 a.m. and do my workouts because to me, that's how, you fit everything in. I don't want to compromise in one area to be something else. And so for me, it's making sure that I maintain to that character and also am performing with that discipline like I would in any other situation in the military.
Absolutely. And that's beautiful. And, one of the things that I've seen with some of your other interviews and articles that have been written about you, I have followed you very closely. Like I said, I'm a pageant girl, pageant mama. So, we watch Miss USA, we watch Miss America religiously. Yeah. So we have kind of followed your journey. My daughter is so jealous right now, by the way.
Oh, that's sweet.
So one of the things that I've seen is you talk about your family, your mom and your dad and the struggles that they had. And one of your big passions is food insecurity. And
yes.
So why is that so important to you? I know you've mentioned your mom before,
Yeah.
but why that specific topic as you move forward, as Miss USA and just in your life in general, why is that such an important platform for you?
Yes. Well, my mother, when she was around 6 years old, began as a migrant worker in the beet fields of Idaho. And that was like her first job. And, I remember my mom telling me these stories growing up and then still sharing them throughout my life now, and just being just so shaken to my core about that harsh reality she had at such a young age, and how, even through that, her family was still food insecure. And I know that her story is not alone, that there's still a problem that, so many countries are facing where, food insecurity is a really pressing issue. And so across the country, 44 million people are food insecure. So for me, with such a large platform, I couldn't think of a better cause to really fight for, knowing that, this touches close to home for me. So I'm really grateful to continue my dedication to service in this way, working with organizations like Feeding America to elevate their message, but then also show that, there is something that can be done about this, that when communities rally together and work within local food banks and pantries, that they can make, change in their own communities and help their neighbor who may be experiencing this issue.
Okay. I think it's a great platform. Absolutely. And so I'm going to kind of move now into your other title of Miss USA. We're kind of bridging that gap there. How did you prepare for Miss USA? Because you have swimsuit competition, you have interview, you have evening gown. So what were preparations like? And kind of for the audience, for those who have never competed in a pageant, kind of give me like the rundown of, because Miss USA is a week, right? Just like Miss America is a week. And
a little
yeah. So kind of give me a rundown of like how that whole process of competing in Miss USA is.
Well, so starting off in my preparation, I really dove into kind of a very similar mentality I had as a cadet, which is that, West Point can be a very competitive environment. I mean, there's things like class rank, you're always kind of vying for a position or something. You're always drawn to be in a very competitive spirit, it feels like. And I think that, iron sharpens iron. But in this case, it's not that you can see your competitors as you're getting ready. So I really focused and honed in on a key mentality that I had at West Point, which was that my only competition is myself, and that, my competition lies between my own ears. And I read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, in preparation for Miss USA. And I remember reading it throughout my time at West Point and just being really motivated, and kind of found this it kind of refined my discipline aspect of my life and how I look at obstacles and adversities and opportunities. And I thought that, if I adopt that similar mentality and just apply it in a different arena, but a similar game for myself, which is that I'm a competitor. I'm someone who demands excellence of myself in every way, shape, and form. And, I'm going to show up as my best self, just as I would if, I was in front of my platoon, or if I was, leading a project. That is who I'm going to show up as. And, I maintain true to waking up at 6 a.m., doing my workouts, going on a run after class, making sure that I finish my homework early so that I could squeeze in sessions with my interview coach. All of those things, I had it down to a science. My Outlook calendar was color coded. I mean, all of those things
love color coding.
being a straight A student at Stanford in a very difficult master's program, but then also being a competitor and representing the state of Michigan and continuing to commit myself to service in, the state of Michigan and really across the country as a Miss USA delegate. I remember getting ready after, I finished exams and finished my final term at Stanford for the quarter, knowing that, hey, my next kind of big exam is walking across the Miss USA stage. And And so I remember heading down to Los Angeles and getting to Hollywood and kind of settling in for one day before we checked in. And I just thought to myself, when you're at Miss USA, you don't get to see your family. You don't
Right.
really get to see your mom. You don't get to hang out with mom and dad before competition. You are in rehearsal. You're either in the hair and makeup chair or you're eating and you're getting ready to go to rehearsal again. So all of these events that you have throughout the day, you're hearing a lot of thoughts. You're around, incredibly talented women, people who have traveled from all across the country to bring their own unique and best self to the table. And so I remember, again, going back into my book, Can't Hurt Me, reminding myself of times in my life where I have overcome adversity and how I want to be able to show up as not just Alma, but really a legacy. I mean, my full name is Alma Odalia Minerva Cooper. Alma was my dad's mom's name. It means soul in Spanish. Odalia is my mom's name. Minerva is my mom's name. And then Cooper is what makes my father and I's uniforms identical. And so I truly believe that having the soul of all of the women in my family, that me walking across that Miss USA stage wasn't just something for me as an individual. It served a bigger purpose for my family, for, people who are looking to break down barriers and maybe create a new path for themselves, their family, their lineage, future generations. I mean, it meant so much more to me than just Alma Cooper chasing a childhood dream. And being there that week and journaling throughout the week, I journaled a ton and just, tried to be really present in the moment and know that, I'm prepared and I can do this. All of that led up to, being the final two people standing there and then ultimately winning and now going on to Miss Universe.
I know. I'm so excited for Miss Universe. and that's kind of actually my next question. So you've been through, I got through Miss Michigan. Now I got through Miss USA. What are you doing to get to Miss Universe? Because it's a completely different world when you're competing with women from across the world for this title. Is your process, you're still working with your interview coach, how are you going about picking out your attire? Because I'm sure it's going to be different than what you wore in Miss USA, which was absolutely stunning. Your evening gown was amazing.
Thank you so much.
It was so beautiful. And so I'm assuming there's going to be something different for Miss Universe. So how are you preparing to compete there?
Yes. Well, it truly takes a village, and I'm really grateful for the people who are on my team because at some point, I mean, my mind can't even stretch that far in terms of creativity for gown design and wardrobe. I'm like, I just have to trust these people because I've never had the liberty of picking out my clothes. I mean, at West Point, I wore a uniform all 4 years.
Right.
So when people are like, what are you going to wear to rehearsal? I'm like, I don't know, just pick for me. So, I think it's really neat to have a team and I'm super grateful for that. And just, again, going back to the idea that, this is bigger than myself. And so at the end of the day, while it's really cool to pick out my outfit every day and, have people on my team who, are designing my gown, I just remind myself that to me, this is really about dedicating myself to service and being able to have such a large platform to share my message, to share my story, and hopefully inspire the next generation of leaders and the next generation of people who are going to chase their dreams and be a part of something bigger than they are as individuals.
And that is absolutely amazing. And I'm sure that you have come across a number of young girls as you've grown up through the pageant world. And what would be your message to those girls about following their dreams?
Yes, my biggest piece of advice to anyone is that the greatest things in life lie on the other side of fear. And I say that because I remember being nervous and being fearful of taking the step and going to West Point. I mean, so many people in my hometown were like, Alma, there's no way that you can do this. I've watched you compete in pageants. I just don't see you being able to make it through, let alone be successful in a place like West Point. And I said, okay, watch me. And then, I go to West Point and I just had I still do this eager mindset and this hunger to learn and just grow. And this, really just wanted to be a sponge. And I think that carrying that through And, even in the face of fear, even in the face of uncertainty, I remember being so scared to move across the country and pursue data science at an institution like Stanford University. And just saying, again, the greatest things in life lie on the other side of fear. I found community. I found, academic rigor. I've really found purpose, which is to be of service in whatever realm. But for me, I, am hungry to learn more and more about health and nutrition in America, food insecurity, and be of service in that realm. Now competing at Miss USA and then winning. I mean, again, the greatest things in life lie on the other side of fear. Whatever it is that, keeps you up at night, whatever you dream about and think, hey, I really want to go after that. I think that my story truly is a testament to whatever it is that's on your mind, that's pulling at your heart. Go after it with a tenacity and ambition, and just knowing that there's something beautiful on the other side of that.
Absolutely. And because you mentioned, some skepticism about you being a pageant girly and doing military stuff. What do you say to the young girls who have grown up doing pageants? Like my daughter, I'm pulling it back around again. So like my daughter who just graduated from high school, she wants to join the Navy, but she also loves doing pageants. What do you say to her? What are some of the challenges that she will face, being in the military, but still wanting to connect to that pageant side of her? And then, we've already kind of talked about the positives, but what are the challenges there for girls like that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to tell you there are negatives. I mean, people will share their opinion that, I don't understand why. I don't understand why we have to celebrate this. I don't understand da 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 da. But then I look at, where this is coming from. And my friends at Stanford always say that negativity loves company. And so, of course, they're going to want to share their opinion with you to try and bring you down. But when you light someone else's candle, that doesn't make your light dimmer or someone else's light dimmer. It just makes the room brighter. And so by you sharing your authenticity, by you sharing your story, by you showing up as your most authentic self, whether you're a power lifter or you're a pageant competitor or you're both or you're all the above, all of it goes into making, this incredible organization where everyone is committed to something bigger than themselves. And so at whatever part of the spectrum you lie on, whatever passions that you're a part of or projects you're working on, all of those composite to make, you who you are and make you the most authentic version of yourself. And I just have to say that, I remember being a cadet and thinking, I really want to do this, but I'm just so nervous about what other people are going to say or what other people are going to think. And the biggest thing that kind of got me over that is that, no one can take away the fact that, I'm earning this degree at Stanford and that one day I'll have my master's from Stanford and I'll have completed my degree from West Point. All of these things are still true about me. And, I could say that for a year of my life, I was Miss USA, and none of those things truly define who I am. It's my character who defines who I am. So I would really tell, your daughter, whoever is out there who's kind of battling and wrestling with these tensions that they feel in their identity, that, none of those one things define you. It's who you are as an individual, your work ethic, your character, and who you show up as when you're challenged.
Absolutely. That is so beautiful. And so I know I asked you before we got in here if you had your crown and you said no, but you have your banner. Is there any way we can we peep the banner?
Yes.
Can we see?
Yes, I can go get it. It's like right outside the door.
Okay, go grab it.
Can I go grab it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's start over. All right, so for all the girlies out there and even, all the soldiers who are excited for you, can we peep the banner?
Yes. Ta-da! This is it.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful.
I know. Yeah. I remember whenever I watched the video when I won, I always remember this clip when they're very zoomed in on my face and I literally say, "What?" Because you just can't believe that you actually won. But this is the exact one.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
It's stunning. It is absolutely stunning. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
From one pageant girly to another, and to all of our pageant girlies out there who are struggling, with our identity between the military and being a pageant girly girl. I just want to say thank you for joining me today. I super appreciate it. And
of course.
To our audience, be sure to tune in on November 16th as our very own Second Lieutenant Alma Cooper competes for the 73rd Annual Miss Universe pageant in Mexico City, Mexico. And until next time, we'll see you on the front line.
Mm-hmm.